Tell me if this sounds familiar. You go through the interview process and you accept a new position. Yes, you're so excited. It's your first day. You walk in ready to have the best job of your life. And you realize, "Ew, this place isn't quite for me." It's crushing. In a market where employers are begging to find new people, it would seem that you, as a job candidate, would be a little picky. Maybe we can find a new position that would really have the culture that we're looking to work in, a thing that would be like a fit and get us pumped up every single day. So the question is it possible to figure out the culture of a company before accepting their offer? It is. And on today's show, we're going to talk all about it, how to find a company culture that fits you during your job search. Welcome to the interview presented by New Horizons. I'm your host, Pat Miller, the Idea Coach. This show is a one-on-one interview and Q&A session. That means audience participation. We're going to bring an expert on and we're going to get your questions answered so you can find a culture that fits for you. If you're serious about finding a new gig, don't forget the thousands of training courses New Horizons can offer you to uplevel your skills. From an intro to computers you can take right on your mobile device, to Windows training, to immersive technology courses to prep you in the growing fields of cloud computing and more, New Horizons is making computer training simple and fun. Get so you can get a job better than you can even imagine. Learn more at careerdevelopmentsolutions.com. The show is also sponsored by Forward Careers. Looking to launch a new career and change careers, but don't know exactly where to start? Check out Forward Careers, the preferred source for career exploration, education, and skill training. Forward Careers is a team of workforce professionals that specialize in providing high quality, effective, and accessible career services in demand driven and high growth professions. To learn more, visit forwardcareers.org. Funding is provided by the Department of Labor, Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Grant, H-1B Tech Hire Grant, Department of Corrections Windows to Work, and Children and Family Independent Living. With all that behind us, let's get down to the good stuff. Let's welcome in our guest today, Andrea Hoffer, CEO of AHA Recruiting Experts based in Delray Beach, Florida. Andrea, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Pat. I'm really happy to be here.
This is a question that's going to help a lot of people, and it seems like we should be able to easily figure out a company culture in the interview process. But sadly, that's not always the case. Before we get to all that, can you just give us a quick update on the hiring situation? It seems like it's a good time for job seekers. Is that still the case?
It's definitely the case. There are a lot of amazing job opportunities out there. And I think if you really have a good feel for what you're looking for, you have a really good chance of finding it.
And when you're looking around, is this the type of thing where there's just uh, many different positions that you can find in one discipline, or it's some companies are hiring and some are not? All I've heard is that it's just a terrific time to try and find a job.
It seems to be in most industries that there is some sort of opportunity. At least, I work a lot with employers, and that's what I'm hearing from them, and also the reports that you see from SHRM and some other studies. There are still a lot of job opportunities out there, and just not enough people who are interested in filling those opportunities.
Well, the good thing is the folks that watch this show, they're looking for a gig, or they will be soon. So we're talking to the right people that are trying to get a job. So let's get into company culture, because it can be defined in a lot of different ways. Um, how would you define company culture and what we should expect from it?
The way I personally define it is, I like to look at core values. Does a company even know what their core values are? And we talk about core values as guideposts, as these 4 to 6 things that are very clearly defined by a company, and we know that everybody in the company lives them every day, and that it's integrated into the day to day, and people know that's what's important. And if I can just share an example, one of our core values at AHA, which is number one, and we're constantly bringing up, is think like a detective. And so if somebody comes into our company, joins our team, and they're not very resourceful, they just sort of take things as as it is at the surface, and doesn't have that drive to kind of look behind the curtains all the time and figure things out, then they're not going to be successful in our culture, because that's the only way we're successful as a company, and every single person on the team lives that every day. And so when I talk about culture, it's not just, a fun place to work, a nice place to work, you're treated like family. It's very specific types of values that are most important to everybody in that company, and that everybody lives every day.
Oh, you're pushing my buttons about treating people like family. I'm going to ask you a question about that in just a second, but I
Okay.
want to follow up on the core values part of it. Would it be a good question for a candidate to say to the recruiter, listen, I need to know what this company stands for. What are your core values? And if they don't rattle them off right away, is that a warning sign?
It could be. Sometimes a company just hasn't done the work, right?
Mm,
Maybe they haven't been advised. Not everybody has a good entrepreneur coach or a good entrepreneur network, but they may have core values that they don't know are their core values. So I think it's a good question to ask and see what comes. If it's not clearly defined, it could be a red flag. But if
mhm.
they still are able to speak to how people show up each day, what's important to everybody, and if there's more than one person interviewing you, and the answers seem to be consistent, then it may not be a red flag. They just haven't really put thought behind it yet.
And I would imagine with a question like that, if you're talking to someone that works at the company, especially in an HR type position, if they're empathetic and authentic about it, like they can express what they're trying to say, but it's not like the 5 bullet points, you can kind of detect that, right?
Exactly. And sometimes that's even better.
Mm,
They might not remember, if I actually keep the core values up in front of me. So in case I don't remember the exact bullet point of
right.
each, even though I know the sentiment behind it. I know that it's something we focus on all the time. So as long as the sentiment is there, and it's consistent across the board, this is who we are,
Yeah.
then that most probably is the true culture.
All right. We need to have a for real talk. Let's just pretend nobody's listening. Okay.
Okay.
We're going to treat you like family. Where did that start? Why does everyone say it? And sometimes that's not a good thing. What is going on with we'll treat you like a family member?
I don't know. And we do a lot of work with employers to help them write their postings, and often that's the first thing we hear. Oh, well, we're going to treat them like, I'm like, great. What does that mean? And sometimes, especially if it's a small growing business, they may have started as a family, and they
Hmm.
probably work together a lot, and they do feel like each other are family members. But it really doesn't tell anybody, a job seeker or even a client, who you truly are. Families show up differently, every single one of them. So I don't know if I want to be treated like family.
Right. You would think an applicant would first judge their own family experience before they decide they want to join another family, right?
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I want to think about identifying company culture in the different stages of finding a job. So if we're seeking a company culture, before we even talk to anyone, let's talk about that job posting. Are there things that may go in the job posting that we can have our antenna up for when we're reading a job post to know if these people are intentional about how they treat their people?
Yes. So if you see a job posting and it's just a long laundry list of what you're going to be doing day to day and what the needs are for the position, and nothing about core values or culture or what their mission is, then that's how they're presenting themselves, and it may be how they function each day. So they're not even really thinking about the
Hmm.
work culture for their team. Now, often, if somebody has really put some work into it, meaning the employer, the hope is you'll find job postings where it will at least touch on the mission of the company. If it's a really good job posting, it's also going to talk to the core values. Whenever we work with employers, we make sure that's on there, and it's usually right at the top, because we feel that that is important not only for the job seeker, but also for the employer, because the employer is going to want to get people who are a good fit for their company and their culture as a whole. So if it's a well-written job posting and you can pull those things out easily, then that's a pretty good sign. I know we're going to talk next about interviewing. I would then take it a step further and make sure it's really true. But the other thing is, not everybody knows how to put together a good job posting and has researched how to do that. I
Sure.
would go into their social media, find whatever you can on the company. Glassdoor, look up any reviews you can find. That's how you're going to learn more about the culture. Now, don't take everything written as, as true, or, realize that everybody has a different take on situations. But if there are 10 reviews and 7 of them are pretty bad or speak to one particular thing that is not something that would be a fit for you, well, then this isn't a good company for you. But if there's, 9 great reviews talking about how well they treat the employees and are specific about what that looks like, then now you have a really good idea of, this is a good company for me.
I think of Glassdoor like Yelp. That's where angry people go to complain. But you're saying if it's a theme and then you can identify things in their social media where they're not trying to impress anyone, they're just trying to talk about what they do. If they're not talking about value-driven conversations, maybe you do have a company that just is very operational and isn't thinking about how they treat people and what they do. You mentioned the interview process. So let's get to that next. I'm always interested in the style points and the tells that can be learned in an interview process. You, I'm sure, running a recruiting firm, coach people on interviewing and probably do a lot of initial interviewing yourself.
Yeah.
What are some of those tells, some of those questions that might expose them as fakers when it comes to company culture?
Well, the first thing is, do they even ask questions about career fit and cultural fit? So some of the questions that I'm always recommending to employers is, ask what candidates enjoyed about their past job and what they didn't enjoy, or what are they looking for in their next job. So if an interviewer is asking you some of these questions and they're really listening, then that's a good sign. That means they care. They want to hire somebody who's going to be happy with them. Now, you may say something about something you really enjoy and want to find in your next job, and that might not be the right fit for this job. That's okay. You both did your homework on each side, and you part as friends. I would say, listen for those questions, be authentic in how you answer. Do not try to give the answers that you think they want, because then you're faking, and then so they're just, you're never going to get to the right result, right? But yeah, really see if they're asking and learning more about not just can you do the job, but you want to do the job, that this would be a good fit for you. And then at the end, when they give you the opportunity to ask questions, you can go back to some of that and say, you know what,
Mhm.
I mentioned earlier, I really enjoy a fast-paced environment. One of my jobs was so slow paced, got bored, and it's just not for me. Could you give me a feel for what it's like here? What is a day in the life at this company? And
Yeah.
see if that matches up with what you're looking for. Because just because uh, every company culture is different. So one candidate is not going to be happy at, a certain company, but another candidate would be happy there. So sometimes it's not, are they faking? It's, are they really making sure this is a good match?
One thing I want to dig into, and this is what's fun about doing this show. We're doing a show for job seekers, but we're talking with someone that talks to job seekers every day, but we're not candidates. We're just having a for real conversation. So as someone that, figures out who to hire for a living, you can tell when someone's read their about page and they start peppering in language, right? We're not that smart, right?
Yes. Yeah, and sometimes it's a good sign to me as long as they don't overdo it. It tells
Yeah.
me they thought like a detective, right? They
Yeah.
they did their research on the company or on my company if it's we're hiring for AHA, and they they took it to heart. Now, if they're just saying back exactly what's on my website,
Hmm.
I'm not going to put a lot of stock in that. But if they internalized it a little bit and talked about how they connected with something they read on the website, whether it's the mission, the core values, or something that jumped out at them, then that's going to be a good sign for me. That's going to start to show me that they could be a good fit for our company.
So we have some questions in the chat that are talking about I'm watching the show and I need a job, or I'm interested in remote work. And I know that something that we're going to do is offer the opportunity to get into your candidate database. Can you talk about what that is? And do you have the URL off the top of your head? Because I'd love to share it, because this show is ultimately about helping people upskill and then find their next great gig. So can you talk about that for a second?
Sure, and then I have to look up the URL to give it to you.
Sure.
Um, but our database, when you sign up to be in our database, if we have a job opening. Now, keep in mind that we are hired by employers. So when we know we have a job we need to fill for one of our clients, one of the first things we do is we go into our database and do a search and see if anyone meets some of the minimum criteria that the employer is looking for. And if they do, then we reach out to them and just say, would you be interested in being considered? And if they say, or even would you be interested in learning more about the position? And so we share with them some marketing materials, some things we put together to really show what the position is about, including the culture. And if they say, yes, this is something I'd be interested in pursuing, then they get passed on to the recruiter who's in charge of
Hmm.
that position. We also take the people from our database and we put them in our mailing list. We do not spam you, but we do share a monthly newsletter with job seeking tips. If you want to unsubscribe, you can easily just hit the unsubscribe button. So
Yeah.
that's really what our database is all about.
Okay. I found aharecruitingexperts.com. And then when I went to the webpage, is this the page that we would share? Join our talent network? Is that what we would like to have shared?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And they can also, if they go under job seekers, there should be an option to see what jobs we're currently hiring
Job
for.
seekers and then job openings right there.
Mhm.
See, look, we're just all over the internet in real time right here. There we go. There's your job seekers, job openings page. Oh, Cold Stone Creamery. Thank you very much. That's my joint right there. All
Yeah,
right. So
we've been the recruiter for the South Florida locations for I think
oh
6 years now.
man. If I worked there, I wouldn't fit in my pants anymore, but man, I love that place. All right, so those links are in the chat. If you're interested in joining the AHA Talent Network, you can do that right inside the chat. All right, so I want to ask one more question about the interview while we're talking about it. Do you have a go-to question that you like to use when you're trying to detect culture awareness and empathy and those sorts of things in a candidate? Can you think of a question you like to ask someone?
Oh, I have so many. I actually have a list of my 100 favorite interview questions.
Wait, hold up. 100 favorite interview questions?
Yes, and there's a reason for that.
Whoa.
They're broken up by category. Because my feeling is with interviewing, there are some questions that work, across the board, right? Like, so one of the things we always say is we have, it's really a universal series of questions that most interviewing gurus will share, and where you go through the last 3 to 5 positions, and you're asking, what did you think? Tell us a little bit about your past supervisor. When we speak with that supervisor, what are they going to say about your strengths? What are they going to say you need to improve on? And going through that gives us a really good feel for
Mhm.
the candidate. Now, if they're new to the workforce, we could ask even about instructors. I know a lot of your listeners are taking classes right now, and we could say, ask about the different instructors and what they thought of them and what worked for them and what didn't. Anything to really give us a feel. The One of my favorite questions, it usually has something to do with, could you share with me a specific example of a time when everything seemed against you
Hmm.
and you just felt like you just couldn't figure something out. And so asking questions like that gives us a feel for how somebody would show up in a situation where things are very difficult, because we want to know that that person would think like a detective and be optimistic and be a problem solver and not not a complainer and somebody who creates problems.
Right.
And one of the things we do with our interviewing is we always ask for specific examples. So, a tip I always give job seekers, whether the interviewer asks for specific examples or not, keep a list of accomplishments that you've had over the years. Doesn't matter if it was on the job, a volunteer position, or in school. Every time that you've overcome the challenge, figured something out, any kind of accomplishment, write down the details. Keep a portfolio of it, no matter where you are in your career. I had
Hmm.
one for 25 years. So that you can review it before you interview. So you have examples you can share with the employer. And whether they're a good interviewer and ask for specific examples or not, by sharing those specific examples, they're going to hook into that and they're going to get a much better feel of how you will be successful on the job.
One of the best tips I heard about that for accomplishments and for positive feedback is to create a folder inside your email. Whenever you get an email of someone telling you did a good job, tag it and put it inside that folder. So you have this little place where people are giving you positive feedback or wins that you have. It's a very easy way. You don't need to rewrite anything. You're just kind of organizing it differently. We put on the screen a reminder that we're looking for your questions. When you're ready to ask a question, drop it into the chat and we will work it into the interview. But we're running out of time. So we got to move forward to the time that we all dream of, the time to get paid, the negotiation segment of an interview. So, what are some of the things we should be listening for while we're negotiating with a company that might represent their culture?
Well, before you even entertain the offer, think about the things that are most important to you. Now, if the employer was really listening when they interviewed you and they asked you questions about what you're looking for in your next job, and that would be beyond just compensation. Compensation, of course, is one of them, but there might be other things that could be just as important or even more important than compensation to you. Did they put those in the offer?
Mm,
And because you don't want the offer to be just about the compensation, maybe some other things, flexibility. Maybe you need to leave early on a certain day to pick up your children or something else. And if they offer, make an offer and it's not exactly what you want, is negotiate around those other things that are just as important to you. And if they really want you, they might not be able to give you everything you ask for, but they should have more room to negotiate around some of those other things. Compensation, they're going to have a cap. They all have budgets that they have to meet. They all have other people that are doing the same job that they can't really pay you more than what they're paying them. So there'll only be a certain amount of room there, but they might be able to give you some other things that make the compensation less important to you.
yeah. And you're right. If during the conversation you're talking about uh, time needs or family balance or whatever it might be, and they put that into the offer, that will prove that they were listening to you. I don't want to get off the negotiation piece until I have the chance to ask a person that runs a recruiting firm. If a recruiter reaches out to you and asks for your salary range, what should we really tell them? Should we tell them what we would accept or what we want or both?
Well, I'm kind of a cut through the crap type person. And if you say to us, and we're going to present it in, first of all, what the way we usually do it is we say, here's the range that the employer is offering.
Right.
Is this within the range of what you would consider?
Mm-hmm.
And if they say no, then I apologize if you hear my dog.
It's okay.
He loves to chime in that I'm on a podcast.
It's the
And
Amazon guy.
what I would then say, the recruiter would then say is, okay, I understand that. Could you just give me, let me know what it is that you're looking for? Obviously,
Sure.
I can ask what you've been paid in the past, because that's not. If anybody asks you that, by the way, in a lot of states that's illegal, and it's also not a good practice. There's some bias worked into that. But they are going to ask, what are you looking for? What is it that would make this job worth it for you to consider? And so I would be honest, don't inflate it. Put it to what you truly would leave for, given that you would get some of the other benefits and things. I'm sorry.
I'm going to mute you for a second. You're such a trooper. That was such a great answer. And I know in your head, you're just thinking, shut up, dog, shut up, dog, shut up, dog. I appreciate the answer. It's something that I always like to ask recruiters when I get the chance, because you never know as a job seeker. Okay, well, this is the interview presented by New Horizons and Forward Careers. Hopefully, you've enjoyed the discussion so far, talking about how to find a company culture that fits you as a job seeker right now. You've kind of in a really good spot to find some place to go choose for your next career. So I want to come back for final thoughts, Andrea, about anything else you would share with a job seeker as they are trying to find the next step in their career right now. Anything that we haven't covered yet?
Well, my dog wants to share something. I would, just really know what's important to you. Put some thought into it. And that way, when you are interviewing and when you are looking at job posts, you can recognize it more easily. And I always recommend printing out, if there's a job you're really interested in, print it out, spend some time with it. There may be some duels in there that you at first glance didn't recognize, and that may pop out at you and may want to, encourage you to ask some other questions during the interview.
Got it. All right. So, what's the dog's name? I'm curious. What's the dog's name?
It's Joey.
Joey.
Like
All
from
right.
Friends, my niece named him.
I love it. All right. So Joey had something to say this morning, which is great. We're going to ask you one more quick question and see if Joey can quiet down for a minute. Question from a user: outside of applying to your talent database, what sites would you recommend someone follows for great job listings?
Well, Indeed, of course, is a good. I would recommend going on LinkedIn, and besides just following job postings, make sure you have a good presence on LinkedIn. Make sure your profile is up to date. Work on your headline. Be very specific about what you're looking for, and start following companies that you're interested in. And even react, put some comments here and there, or like things, anything that hits you, that you have a comment about. I mean, it'd still be authentic. The more you start to get engaged, even through social media, with a company, that they might notice you. Start following their recruiters if they have in-house recruiters. Comment on what they have, and that's where you'll start to see the newest jobs. Sometimes they don't even post them on job boards, or not right away, but they will post them to their LinkedIn feed pretty quickly.
And that's a pretty standard practice, right? We're looking to hire X. Hey, Andrea, do you happen to have any candidates that might fit X? I mean, isn't that regular conversation between one of your clients and you before a post even goes up?
Yes, it is. We work a little bit differently, but for most recruiters, they're gonna a client will call them and say, do you have candidates in your database, or that you've been engaging with that could be a good fit?
That's great. What a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today. Andrea Hoffer, CEO of AHA Recruiting in Delray Beach, Florida. It's a real pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed it.
Well, that's what today's show is all about. It's about helping you get ahead in your career. If you're looking to land that next great job, make sure to check out careerdevelopmentsolutions.com. Careerdevelopmentsolutions.com. You can chat with the New Horizons training staff. They're standing by right now. They will match you with the training you need. So when Andrea calls you, you are ready for that terrific opportunity that she's got. Careerdevelopmentsolutions.com. Also, thank you to our sponsor, Forward Careers, for their support today. I'm Pat Miller, the Idea Coach. We do this show once a month. If you have any questions or feedback or ideas for future episodes you'd like to see us talk about, let us know right here on the page, and we will book guests to come on and tell us all about it. But that's it for the interview for February. We'll talk to you in March.